Hello everybody. This festive period I have found myself with that most unusual of things, some free time. So I have taken a short break from talking about cars and used it to watch some other people talking about cars. I've been delving through the old Top Gear back catalogue currently on the BBC iPlayer. I've been watching a number of different episodes, some old favourites, some forgotten gems and a few that really haven't aged all that well. I think alongside the Top Gear specials, some of the most memorable episodes are those featuring cheap car challenges, and that got me thinking, could you these days actually do any of the old cheap car challenges using the rules as set then? And that's exactly what this video is all about. I've picked 4 of what I deem the most memorable Top Gear cheap car challenges, looked at what they cost then, worked out the equivalent price today, including inflation, seen what the cars featured in the programme would now cost to acquire, and if there are any equivalents that meet the original criteria you can pick up today. It's going to be a tough one, I will admit, but hopefully enjoyable too. And I invite you all to play along with this game. If you found any gems that could be a contender for a Top Gear cheap car challenge as featured in today's video, please send me a link in the comment section down below. But bear with me, YouTube automatically filters any comment with a link in it, so I will have to manually approve all of them. Anyway, on to the video, so let's start with the obligatory funky music. And as we're talking suspiciously cheap cars, a big thank you to our sponsor, CarVertical, the super-powered super search that you really do want to use if you're thinking about buying just about anything we're talking about today. This is a service that takes just a few seconds to use, requires only a registration number, a desktop computer or a mobile where you'll find the CarVertical app, and they'll give you an easy to read and understand report telling you, well, just about everything you need to know. Accident damage, mileage history, MOT issues, all that good stuff. For the obligatory YouTuber discount, don't forget to check out my link in the description down below. Now, let's get started, and what better place than at the beginning with the original cheap car challenge, the £100 car from Series 4, Episode 3, first broadcast on the 23rd of May 2004. This is the episode that also featured the Ferrari 360 Challenge Stradale facing off against the mighty Porsche 911 996 generation GT3 RS. The star in the reasonably priced car then was Katie Price, known at the time as Jordan. The challenge here was to buy a car which you could drive from London to Manchester and back for less than the price of the equivalent train ticket. So there was about £100 I think for the car, plus some fuel money on top. Adjusted for inflation, £100 in 2004 is £164 now. The cars featured, Jeremy bought a Volvo 760 2.8 litre V6 GLE. James bought an Audi ATE with the 1.8 litre engine, and Richard had a Rover 416 GTI. Can you get any of those today for £100 or even £164? No, you cannot. I have been trawling the darkest corners of the internet to try and find just about anything that matches the prices paid in these episodes, and I'll confess it's been a struggle. Take a look at this. Even finding a Volvo 760 was difficult, let alone one in decent condition for cheap money, and frankly, just wasn't happening. This is about the only Volvo 760 that I could find which roughly matched that featured in the episode. It's not exactly a pretty thing, is it? But this one is a very good example. Certainly better than the one featured. It has the same engine, the 2.8 litre. It's an automatic. It is in Geography Teacher Silver. Even has electric seats, leather interior, all sorts of nice stuff, and does seem to be fairly well presented. It's for sale currently on carandclassic.com and is up for the princely sum of £2,000. It is also just about one of the only Volvo 760s that I could find. Full stop. There really aren't all that many out there. Have a look. eBay turned up basically nothing. Auto Trader turned up absolutely nothing. But if we go here, Volvo 760, that's it. That is the only one. The pickings were better for the Audi 80. There's this example up on eBay, which does need a little bit of help. It is an M-Reg, so a 94-95 car. Has the 2.6 litre engine, so it's better than the one that James had. This is a V6. Looks somewhat scruffy inside. Needs at least a good clean, this car. Probably quite a bit more, let's be honest. And what is being said about it? Well, its spares or repairs due to no MOT might need a fuel pump, which is eBay code for definitely needs a fuel pump and a whole bunch of other stuff. Oh, the pump is in the boot though, and it doesn't have a V5 with it, which always does cast doubt in my mind. That is £1,395. Over here, we have perhaps a little bit closer to the original car featured, a 1.8E in a really uninspiring specification with not many photos. The advert for this one is only a tiny bit better because it's spares or repair, but they can only sell the whole car. There is damage to the windscreen, the near side front suspension, the inside roof material needs attention, and it has failed its MOT. But before that, it drove excellent. That was £450 and has sold, or at least been delisted from eBay. So, not really any good. How about the Rover? Well, that I'm afraid is even worse. The only car I could find roughly matching the description of the one in the program was this. It's an example of the later 416 GSI, which is what the GTI turned into, and it looks exactly like I imagine old Rovers looking. But if you see here, you'll see a stack of receipts on the back seat, which is good, and actually it looks kind of adorable, this car, like a really lovely, this is a granddad car, isn't it? This is a granddad car, but it's also £5,000. £5,000. I mean, it's got a good ad. It's being sold by a dealership. It's, you know, all that jazz. But 5,000 quid. That's pretty bad. And I hate to tell you this, but I did try and look to see if you could find any car running, driving with an MOT for even like 200 quid. And not happening. It's also made worse by the fact that when the program aired, you could sell a car with the tax on it. That was a very common thing to do. If there was only 2 or 3 months worth left, people tended to leave it on it, added to the value of the car. But that hasn't been doable for a number of years now. Once you sell a car, the tax is automatically expired. You have to apply for it. So today, many of these cars, even the tax alone, would cost you more than buying the whole car did when the episode aired. Now, in my attempt to try and find a car as close in spirit as I could to that original show, this is the best that I got. There were many things up for sale at temptingly low prices, but as soon as you went into the advert, you found out they had long expired MOTs, the cars needed a lot of work, and ultimately they were going to cost you £1,000 or £2,000 to get even close to roadworthy. This, though, this seems promising. Now, this car reached £330 or thereabouts recently, didn't get picked up though. It's a Ford Ka, the early one, which I think is actually quite a cool thing, but it's not an early example, it's an 06 plate. So it's got the colour-coded bumpers on it, and it's quite a good little runabout. These things drive great. Even better, this is a Ford Ka in blue. It's a solid drive apparently. The owner picked it up 6 months ago as a stopgap. There's no real issues other than some bodywork damage to the passenger door and passenger side panel. The passenger door handle needed fixing. It's been glued on from the outside but can still be used from the inside. But that's the spirit of this kind of thing. The heat shield also needs attaching better. Apparently it's loose but not going anywhere. That's good. And the light on the dashboard needs replacing. There are also the usual marks in keeping with a car of this age. But in good news, it has an MOT until the 26th of December, which will be in the past by the time you see this, I think. However, today, that's nearly 3 weeks. You know. Also comes with 2 keys and the V5, which is more than I can say for some of these other cars. So that is the closest that I could get. It's yeah. Sorry, I haven't been able to do better with that one, but I figured that would be the case. Honestly, today, if someone came to me and said, James, how much have I got to spend for a car I can get in and just drive that I really don't care about? I'd probably say about £1,000 is closer to the mark. Sure, every now and again I see stuff crop up for 400 to 600 quid, and it is a car that maybe has some life left in it, but they're also the sort of cars that are almost certain to cost you a lot of money at the next MOT. So yeah, today I'd say budget £1,000 for a starter car. It's a lot of money, isn't it? I blame the scrappage scheme. There was a lot of really good sort of 15 to 30-year-old stuff that was doing nobody any particular harm that unfortunately was taken off the roads in the name of improving the car industry. The tragedy there being that what we Partex these old lovely things for were diesels that were now being punished for owning. That's for a separate video. Anyway, the second challenge that I've chosen is one also very fondly remembered. This is the £1,500 Porsche. It's from Series 5, Episode 6, also in 2004, the 5th of December 2004 in fact. In that episode, we saw the introduction of the Mark V Golf GTI, still a great car. The guest there was Cliff Richard, and it also featured Billy Baxter, the blind man who did a lap of the Top Gear track quicker than some people with their sight. Adjusted for inflation, £1,500 today is closer to about £2,500. So now it sounds like we've actually got a bit of budget to play with. I remember about 13 years ago being offered a Porsche 944 for £700. It had actually just had an MOT. I think it might have had a little bit of tax with it too. And the guy had just spent £200 on coloured centre caps for the wheels. It was an early example in black and it certainly needed some work, but it was a car that ran and drove, and it was a Porsche. In this episode, Richard bought a 924, James bought a 944, and Jeremy bought a rather ropey and fairly ambitious, even for the time, 928. So, today, what are you going to be paying for these cars? I think it's pretty fair to say that the reputation of all transaxle Porsches has improved significantly in the intervening years, but still, a 94 is a fairly cheap way into Porsche ownership. This example here sold for £2,650. It has some fairly recent photos. It doesn't actually look all that bad. Sure, the interior needs a little bit of work and I would appreciate more photos, but you know, I've seen worse for an ad, and this car is bronze with the 2.5 litre engine. It's a 924S, which is a good thing. Even better, he's had it for 20 years. Had a lot of work done in those years. He has receipts for it. It's got an MOT until March of next year, which is great, and in a couple of years it will be tax and MOT exempt. The speedo shows 80,000 miles, but this is likely to be 180,000 I would suspect. These only have a 5-digit gauge. He does also say a new odometer has now been fitted, but in theory it should only be a few hundred miles away from what's actually accurate. Against the car though is the fact it's currently sawned because he takes his granddaughter out a lot and the Porsche isn't big enough, and the car hasn't had much use in the last 5 years. So I'd say you're likely going to have to spend a bit of money getting this one going, but it looks like it might not be an entirely terrible base. So that I would say actually it's close enough. £2,500 is the limit, 2,650 for this, so getting a 924 within budget is not actually impossible. How about 944s though? That's a different matter. This is a 1989, so that's the later second generation car with a much improved interior. It's in white, which ordinarily I wouldn't like, but on the 944 it works, and even better, there's photos and a video walk round too. This is fantastic. Didn't actually know you could put videos on eBay, but apparently you can. The car clearly has just been cleaned, and frankly, compared to some of the other stuff that I've looked at, the fact the owner has taken any effort whatsoever to make it look good is really much appreciated. You can see inside that it's got a half decent looking interior. It appears to be blue, actually. He even shows you the keys and things like that. It's got all the obligatory stuff. It's got the little immobilizer chip. It seems like a good car. A few years ago, this really would have been a sort of £2,000 to £3,000 car maybe, so, you know, not terribly cheap, but also fairly affordable. Now, it's up for £4,900 with the bidding not finished, so way beyond our budget, double the budget in fact. How about the 928 then that Jeremy acquired? Well, that was already a fairly optimistic thing, as evidenced by the car in the programme. But what are you going to pay for one of those today? The funny thing is, they haven't actually risen at anywhere near the same rate as the 944 or even the 924. I think it's the combination of running costs and unreliability issues that have actually kept 928 prices fairly low. So this example actually sold, allegedly, for just £5,500. In other words, about the same as that 944 is probably going to achieve. What's the car all about? Good, nice, girthy ad here. Plenty of words. I like this. It's a 1984 928S, also in white. It's also clearly just had a clean. You can see a few little bits of damage. The front bumper here and bonnet don't look so great, but you know what? This kind of price is okay. It's not the shape that I really like either. That doesn't look quite right, and that man there looks very, very unimpressed. But the interior actually looks tidier, cleaner than I would have expected. Engine bay does look a little grubby in places, does look like maybe this car's been stood for a while, or it doesn't have an MOT. It sounds like the car's pretty much there, like maybe a few things required to get it through, and this could be a usable, nice example of an old classic Porsche, but still double our budget. So what could you actually get for this kind of money today? Well, there is a Cat D Boxster up on Auto Trader. It is in fact one of the cheapest Porsches about, and that's still over £2,500. In fact, it's £2,700. Doesn't she look magnificent? What a beauty. Grey interior actually looks quite nice. It's even a manual as well. You'd figure it'd be a Tiptronic. The fact it's a Cat D means that you might be getting a little bit more value for money than if you were to buy a straight car. Looks like this has been sat for quite a while. Look at those brakes. Yeah, this car's not moved for a fair bit and is likely going to need a bit of work to get it going. Oh, potentially has an engine issue with the oil light coming on at idle. However, the owner is open to discussions on price. I bet you are. The crazy thing is that today, the cheapest of Porsches, certainly in terms of value for money, is actually the Cayenne. Some of those are really, really cheap. There's one advertised here that starts and drives, but officially is spares or repair, and it's 1,500 quid. Actually, £1 under. Look at that. I'm kind of tempted to sort of just buy it and see how bad it actually is. But even I'm not that silly. Oh, look. Doesn't even have air in all the tyres. And what are those wheels? Oh my goodness. Yeah. So there you go. That's the £1,500 Porsches, and it isn't actually the total disaster that I feared it might be. Special thank you to my friends George and Caitlin and also Gordon from the Porsche Club up in Scotland, who helped me with trying to find a few examples of cheaper cars. Now, the one where it gets really, really tricky. Another one of the most memorable cheap car challenges, the mid-engined Italian Supercar for £10,000 or less. This is from the 4th episode of the 7th series, broadcast almost exactly a year later on the 4th of December 2005. The guest that week was Dame Ellen MacArthur. Other features that week included the Pagani Zonda F and a race between a cyclist and a Clio. It also featured a moving tribute to Richard Burns. James bought the Lamborghini Urraco, Richard bought a Ferrari Dino 308 GT4, and Jeremy bought the Maserati Merak, allegedly the SS version. I actually bumped into the exact Urraco that James drove in this episode a number of years later, where I was told that it wasn't actually anywhere near as unreliable as made out in the episode. They apparently had mucked around with it for dramatic effect. But can you actually get any of these cars today for even close to £10,000? Can you heck? How bad is it then? Well, let's look at the Urraco first. There are 4 up for sale on Car and Classic, and 3 of them are POA. The only one with a price is €99,500. Does look good though, doesn't it? I mean, look at that. That's a fabulous thing. Quite a distinctive car. Incidentally, if anyone out there has one of these lesser spotted Lamborghinis, the Urraco, the Silhouette, the Jalpa, I would love to try one. I really want to see what they're all about. I think they're distinctive and iconic in their own way, but really criminally underrated. In Lambo world, the V8s just don't get anywhere near the recognition that some of the older Ferraris do. The V8 models there often being, to some, the more desirable. A total bust on the Urraco. How about the 308? Because that isn't really even a Ferrari. It's a Dino. It's not a pretty thing and has never really been that well loved. Unfortunately, those have gone up in price as well. Here's an example from Fosker's, again, in much better condition than the car featured in the show, but this is £60,000. And the thing is really that most of these cars we're talking about, way back when, they were getting to the stage where a restoration was pretty much imminent. Now, some of these cars featured in the show had allegedly already undergone some description of restoration work, or at least major mechanical stuff, but that never really seemed to help them, did it? Anyway, this 308 does actually look really quite tidy and very nice. Not surprised with it being at Fosker's. Oh, gorgeous, classic colour combo, Rosso Corsa, cream interior leather, and looks like Bordeaux carpet, though they may not have called it Bordeaux at that time. This has the same dash layout as the Dino that everyone does think of, the 206 and 246, and I suppose if you are on the hunt for a bargain mid-engined Italian supercar that can also be enjoyed by the whole family, this is not a bad shout. But for me, it's not really the car I think of when it comes to Ferrari. I don't think it has improved with time either. To my eyes, it's just not a looker. It, like the Lamborghini, is another car I'd love to try because maybe it drives so well that can make up for its ungainly proportions. However, the fact is, at £60,000, this is basically the same money now as a 360. In case you are wondering, £10,000 back in 2005 translates to roughly £16,000 now, so we are a country mile off. Our final hope lies with the Merak. Any better? No. Look at this. And in fact, look at this, then I'll tell you the price. Absolutely glorious, isn't it? I mean, it looks like somebody built a Porsche 914 from memory, but got the proportions a little bit wrong. Oh, yeah, that'll buff out. What happened to this car? Oh my, oh my, oh my. I mean, all right, okay. Let's, before we put you out of your misery, shall we have a guess? What are you going to get? I'm going to guess, I mean, I would guess, I know the value, but I would guess £5,000, which to me already looks like far too much. Bearing in mind that Jeremy paid 10 grand or thereabouts for his. You want to know? This car, currently up for sale, 25,000 euros. I suppose at least it is a real SS, unlike Jeremy's, and has power windows and air conditioning. The car is currently in Poland, but I believe was originally supplied to the USA, and that, wow. This has got to be one of the most ambitious for sale ads I've ever seen. The pictures are great. The pictures are really clear, really high quality, some of the best I've seen so far, but the car, oh, that needs help. I think even Matt Armstrong wouldn't buy this. That's how bad this car is. So what do you do today if you want something Italian, mid-engined, under £10,000? How much is a Fiat X19? Oh, I could get you an X19. I could do you that. In fact, I could do you a nice looking X19. Here you go. Look at that. There you go. Not exactly what you had in mind, is it? If you want the mid-engine thing, you could get a Toyota MR2. You could get a Boxster. Can't get a Cayman for 10 grand. Could for about 16, I suppose. That's tidy. That is tidy. I'll give that some credit. That looks beautiful. But yeah, Italian, mid-engine, exotic, 10 grand, not happening. And for my finale, the fourth episode I've chosen is the second of Series 13, which featured, as its guest, Stephen Fry. It also had the Lamborghini Murcielago SV and a drag race between a McLaren F1 and a Bugatti Veyron. The cheap car challenge here was a car for a 17-year-old for £2,500, including the insurance. Now, I'm going to ignore the insurance bit because, as they found out even in that program, insurance for young people is very, very expensive. It's got worse today, and I think just to keep things even remotely possible, I'm going to ignore that entirely. The budget they were given was £2,500, and today that's £3,644. The episode aired on the 28th of June 2009. The cars featured were Jeremy's Volvo 940 Turbo, James's VW Golf Mark III, and Richard's Hyundai S Coupe, the original. Luckily, this has turned out a little bit better than the last one. So, what are you going to pay today for a 940 Turbo? £3,500 for this one, and actually, it looks like quite a good one. Looks fairly clean, if entirely unexciting and very Volvo-like. I mean, look at the rake on that rear sky. That's like that, isn't it? I mean, I wouldn't want to hit that, because I bet that glass wouldn't break either. You just go, neck broken. It does look really well kept, though. Good ad, though. Good number of pictures. That interior. Love that. That's fantastic. All shot of the boot open as well. Dash looks clean. Engine bay looks fairly good. That's a really, really well kept example of a car, that. 77,500 miles. Doesn't look like it's got any duff history. He's owned the car since 1995. Someone buy that and bring it to me for a review, please. That's gorgeous. Love it. It's in Balerno. Don't know where that is, but it's a long way from here. Only bad bit, unused in the garage since 2006. So it's going to need a fairly serious service, but beyond that, that looks nice. Really nice. Okay, how about the Golf Mark III? Helps really that is one of the unloved generations of VW. The 3 and 4 never really commanded that much love or money. This is up for sale at a dealer. It also has a video, and again, that looks like a good car. All for £2,500. I like this a lot. Let's have a look inside, come on. Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. I like that. Steering wheel looks a little bit odd. Red makes it stand out. Okay, this is a low-res video, but this looks really well preserved. Low owners, full service history, low mileage, 65,000. Drives like new, apparently, and great investment opportunity as prices are only rising. Not rising that fast, I think, if they're still £2,500 now, but saying that, the only issue here is the fact I've just noticed this is a GTI. So a Golf GTI for £2,500. Maybe it's not a GTI that's going to impress too many people, certainly not with 115 horsepower, but still, a GTI. Okay, now the final car, the S Coupe, actually had me a little bit scuppered because I couldn't find one. I mean, really. Between Auto Trader, Facebook Marketplace, Gumtree and eBay, I could not find a single example of the original Hyundai S Coupe for sale. But luckily, there are loads of examples of the new Coupe, which was discontinued in 2008, but still is newer than the one featured, and you could easily get one of those within budget. In fact, I reviewed one the other day that cost its owner only £1,250 because it was a write-off, and there are non-cat cars out there for £2,000, a little bit less if you're happy to go for a ropey one. So you could just get the modern version of the same thing for about the same money. Or if you wanted something a little bit more practical, you could get something like this, again, being sold by a dealer, and though it's unlikely to get anyone particularly excited, this i30 with a 1.6 litre diesel engine is probably a really, really good, if unexciting car. The little patches of red on the interior, I suppose, could fool somebody into thinking it's a Type R equivalent, but generally this is actually a decent looking car. A few miles on it, 140,000, but it's a diesel engine, it'll probably go forever anyway, and you'll be legislated out of it before it actually breaks. So there you have it. That is a look at 4 of the original Top Gear cheap car challenges, and unsurprisingly, some of them you simply could not do now. But surprisingly, some of them you actually can. Please, don't forget, hit the like button, comment down below, tell me which of the Top Gear cheap car challenges or specials was your favourite, and have you found any bargains out there that I missed? Or even better, are there some wherever it is that you live that we simply don't get here in the United Kingdom? Anyway, I want to say a huge thank you to you for watching, and as ever, I'll see you for the next one. Bye bye.